In the last episode, we witnessed how disasters, disease, and collapsing mines turned thriving communities into silent ruins. But not every town died because of nature. Some were abandoned without a single flood, without a fire, without an epidemic. Their fate was decided hundreds of miles away, inside corporate boardrooms, railroad offices, and political meetings where a single line drawn across a map could determine whether thousands of people would prosper or lose everything. Today, we uncover the hidden power that reshaped America more than almost any other invention: the railroad. Please don't forget to subscribe to my page, follow, like, and share for more hidden history, untold stories, and fascinating historical mysteries. By the middle of the 19th century, the United States was expanding faster than ever before. Settlers moved west. Farmers searched for fertile land. Miners hunted precious metals. Merchants dreamed of reaching new markets. But there was one enormous problem: distance. Transporting goods across thousands of miles by wagon was painfully slow and expensive. A journey that took months could ruin businesses before products ever reached customers. America needed something faster, something stronger, something capable of connecting an entire continent. The answer came in steel. Railroads. The construction of the first transcontinental railroad became one of the greatest engineering projects in American history. Two companies raced toward each other. The Central Pacific Railroad built eastward from California. The Union Pacific Railroad built westward from the Great Plains. Thousands of workers, many of them Irish immigrants and Chinese laborers, performed dangerous work through mountains, deserts, and harsh winters. They blasted tunnels through solid granite, built bridges across deep valleys, laid miles of track across open prairie. Many lost their lives during construction. Their work transformed the nation. In 1869, the famous Golden Spike at Promontory Summit, Utah, symbolized the completion of the first transcontinental rail connection. For the first time, America could cross the continent by rail. It was a triumph of engineering, but it also changed the destiny of countless towns. In the American West, a railroad station meant opportunity. Farmers could ship crops. Merchants received supplies. Banks opened. Hotels welcomed travelers. Schools expanded. Doctors arrived. Population increased almost immediately. Some towns doubled in size within a few years simply because trains stopped there. Businesses advertised proudly, "Located on the railroad." That single phrase could attract investors from across the country. The railroad wasn't merely transportation. It became the economic heartbeat of entire communities. But what happened to towns the railroad bypassed? For a minute, it meant disaster. Imagine owning the largest hotel in town. Business is booming. Then a new rail line opens. 5 miles away. Passengers no longer arrive. Freight no longer stops. Merchants relocate closer to the tracks. Within months, your customers disappear. The hotel closes. Then the general store. Then the blacksmith. Soon families begin leaving. Not because they wanted to, but because opportunity had moved elsewhere. The town hadn't changed. The railroad had. Entire communities sprang up around rail depots. Some settlements existed for only a few months before becoming permanent towns. Others grew into major American cities. Railroad executives sometimes selected locations based on geography, engineering needs, available water, or business considerations. When a station opened, businesses followed. When tracks were extended, land values often increased dramatically. Speculators rushed to purchase property, hoping the next stop would become the next great city. Sometimes they were right. Sometimes they lost everything. The railroad wasn't just moving trains. It was moving money. Railroad companies received large land grants from the federal government to encourage construction. These grants allowed companies to sell land to settlers and businesses. The arrival of a rail line could transform inexpensive prairie into valuable commercial property. Communities celebrated when tracks arrived. But disappointment spread quickly when they didn't. Local leaders lobbied fiercely for railroad access. They knew the future of their towns might depend on it. Many people believe ghost towns were abandoned because they were unlucky. History suggests a more complicated picture. Economic decisions mattered. Transportation networks mattered. Investment mattered. A profitable mine without affordable transportation could struggle. A farming community without access to major markets could decline. In many cases, prosperity depended not only on local resources, but on connections to the wider economy. The railroad became one of those essential connections. Over the years, stories emerged claiming railroad executives intentionally destroyed certain towns to benefit others. Historians have found that while competition between rail companies and local communities could be intense, the reasons routes were chosen were usually complex. Geography, construction costs, financing, political negotiations, expected freight, and engineering challenges all played important roles. For families watching businesses close after being bypassed, the result felt deeply personal. Whether driven by economics or circumstance, the consequences were real. Entire communities faded while others flourished. History often celebrates the towns that survived. Less often does it remember those that didn't. Imagine standing on a quiet platform, waiting for a train that no longer stops. Watching neighbors pack wagons one by one. Listening as businesses close their doors. Knowing the town where your children were born may soon disappear from the map. That was the reality for many Americans during the railroad era. Not because they failed, but because history changed direction. And the tracks went somewhere else. Perhaps the greatest surprise is this. Many ghost towns were not doomed by nature. They were shaped by human choices. Business decisions. Transportation routes. Investment priorities. Economic shifts. These invisible forces determined which communities became thriving cities, and which slowly vanished into silence. Today, abandoned rail beds still cross deserts, mountains, and open plains. Weathered stations stand empty. Rusting tracks disappear into the horizon. They remind us that progress always creates change. But not everyone benefits equally from that change. Every ghost town tells two stories. One of remarkable ambition, and another of unexpected loss. 'Cause sometimes, the quietest places have the loudest stories. For centuries, America built towns with one dream. Opportunity. Gold, silver, railroads. A new beginning. But when those dreams disappeared, the people disappeared too. Yet not every ghost town vanished completely. Some remain almost exactly as they were left. Empty homes. Silent churches. Abandoned schools. Saloons with bottles still on dusty shelves. Walking through them feels less like visiting history, and more like stepping into a world where time suddenly stopped. We explore America's most famous ghost towns, and uncover the real stories hidden behind their empty streets. High in the mountains of Eastern California sits one of the best-preserved ghost towns in America. Bodie. Today, visitors walk along wooden sidewalks surrounded by weathered buildings. Broken windows reveal classrooms where books still rest on desks. General stores still display rusted cans. Homes contain furniture left behind decades ago. But in the late 1870s, Bodie was booming. Gold discoveries transformed it from a tiny mining camp into a bustling town of thousands. More than 60 saloons lined its streets. Hotels welcomed travelers. Banks handled fortunes. Schools educated children. Doctors treated patients. Newspapers covered local events. By day, miners descended into the earth searching for gold. By night, the town glowed with lanterns, music, laughter, and the constant hope of striking it rich. Yet beneath the prosperity, trouble was growing. As richer ore became harder to find and mining profits declined, people began leaving. Several destructive fires damaged parts of the town, although Bodie continued for years afterward. Gradually, businesses closed. Families moved away. The post office eventually shut its doors. Today, Bodie is preserved in what California calls arrested decay, maintained to prevent further collapse rather than restored to look new. It stands as one of the most remarkable windows into life in the American West. Our next stop is Bannack, Montana. In 1862, gold was discovered nearby. Prospectors poured into the region. Within months, Bannack became one of the busiest settlements in Montana Territory. It even served as the territory's first capital. Merchants prospered. Government offices opened. Schools welcomed children. Churches became gathering places. But Bannack also earned a reputation for crime. Robberies plagued travelers. Law enforcement struggled to maintain order. One of the town's most famous figures was Sheriff Henry Plummer, who was accused by contemporaries of leading or cooperating with a gang of road agents. Modern historians continue to debate the full extent of his involvement. Without a formal trial, Plummer was executed by a vigilance committee in 1864. Was he truly guilty? Or was he condemned in a period of fear and frontier justice? The question still sparks debate today. As gold production declined, Bannack slowly emptied. Its abandoned buildings remain remarkably intact, preserving one of the most important frontier landscapes in the United States. Hidden in the Colorado Rockies lies St. Elmo. Founded during Colorado's mining boom, the town once thrived with hotels, stores, schools, and busy rail connections. Unlike many ghost towns, St. Elmo declined gradually rather than overnight. When mining slowed and the railroad stopped operating, residents quietly moved away. Today, many original buildings still stand. Visitors often describe the silence as unforgettable. Old storefronts line the main street exactly where merchants once greeted customers. The surrounding mountains seem unchanged, making it easy to imagine life there more than a century ago. Few places illustrate the boom and bust cycle better than Rhyolite, Nevada. After rich gold discoveries in the early 20th century, investors envisioned a modern city in the desert. Within only a few years, Rhyolite featured a stock exchange, banks, electric lighting, concrete sidewalks, hills, a hospital, an opera house, schools. It seemed destined for greatness. Then came financial panic. Mining production declined. Outside investment slowed. The railroad reduced service. Businesses closed one after another. Within a remarkably short time, thousands of residents had departed. Today, skeletal ruins stand against the desert sky, a reminder of how quickly optimism can fade when an economy depends on a single industry. Deep in the mountains of Montana sits Garnet. Unlike the lawless image often associated with frontier settlements, Garnet developed as a relatively close-knit mining community. Families celebrated holidays together. Children attended school. Neighbors helped one another through difficult winters. But isolation created challenges. Harsh weather, limited transportation, declining gold production. One by one, families left. Today, preserved cabins, stores, and homes offer a glimpse into everyday frontier life, not just dramatic tales of gunslingers and prospectors. Hollywood often portrays ghost towns as places filled only with gamblers, outlaws, and fortune hunters. Reality was very different. Most residents were ordinary people. Teachers, doctors, blacksmiths, farmers, merchants, carpenters, children. These communities celebrated weddings, mourned loved ones, attended church, and worked hard to build stable lives. When ghost towns disappeared, it wasn't only businesses that vanished. Entire neighborhoods, friendships, and family histories disappeared as well. Many ghost towns survive today not because they escaped destruction, but because they were forgotten. Remote locations protected them from modern development. Dry climates slowed decay. Historical preservation efforts saved what remained. These abandoned streets have become open-air museums, allowing future generations to understand the hopes and hardships of frontier America. Visitors sometimes ask whether ghost towns are truly haunted. Stories of mysterious footsteps, unexplained lights, and strange sounds have become part of local folklore. While such tales are popular, there is no reliable historical evidence that supernatural events explain these places. The real mystery is often more compelling. How quickly communities built through determination, investment, and optimism could disappear when circumstances changed. History itself can feel haunting. The greatest discovery isn't hidden beneath abandoned mines. It's hidden inside the towns themselves. Every empty school, every abandoned church, Every weathered hotel reminds us that prosperity is never guaranteed. The American dream built these communities. Changing economics, exhausted resources, and shifting transportation networks quietly erased many of them. Today, tourists photograph empty streets. Historians preserve fragile buildings. Archaeologists uncover forgotten artifacts. But the most valuable treasure left behind isn't gold. It's memory. These ghost towns continue teaching lessons about ambition, resilience, risk, and the fragile nature of success. Yet one final mystery remains. Across America, some abandoned towns have become surrounded by chilling legends, hidden tunnels, forgotten cemeteries, and stories that blur the line between history and folklore. What is fact? What is fiction? And why do these places continue capturing our imagination more than a century later? In our final episode, we'll separate myth from reality, explore the lasting legacy of America's ghost towns, reveal the documentary's biggest twist, and answer the question that has echoed through every abandoned street. What do ghost towns truly tell us about the rise and fall of the American dream? Stand in the middle of an abandoned street. Close your eyes. Imagine children running to school. Miners heading underground before sunrise. Church bells ringing. Steam whistles echoing across the valley. Now, open your eyes. Nothing. Only silence. How can an entire town simply disappear? After everything we've uncovered, the greatest mystery isn't where these people went. It's why history almost forgot they were ever here. When the last families packed their wagons and departed, the stories remained. Locals spoke of lights appearing in empty windows. Travelers claimed they heard footsteps in deserted streets. Old hotels became the subject of ghost stories. Abandoned cemeteries inspired countless legends. Over time, newspapers, novels, films, and television helped transform many ghost towns into places of mystery. Some legends became famous. Others grew with every retelling. While these stories are part of American folklore, historians generally find that the real history is already extraordinary without adding the supernatural. The silence itself is powerful. Modern archaeologists approach ghost towns differently. They don't simply study abandoned buildings. They study ordinary life. Broken dishes reveal eating habits. Schoolbooks show what children learned. Medicine bottles tell stories about healthcare. Mining tools explain how people worked. Clothing, toys, letters, and newspapers reveal the hopes and worries of people who expected these towns to thrive for generations. Each artifact transforms abandoned buildings into communities once filled with life. Many documentaries focus on gold, silver, railroads, fortunes. But ghost towns were never just about money. They were about people. Immigrant families who crossed oceans searching for opportunity. Teachers who believed education could shape the frontier. Doctors who cared for isolated communities. Merchants who invested everything they owned. Children who knew no other home. When a town disappeared, those lives rarely appeared in history books. Yet together they helped build the American West. Perhaps the biggest misconception is that ghost towns represent failure. In reality, many were successful, for a time. They produced valuable minerals, connected remote regions, created jobs, supported families, contributed to national growth. Their disappearance does not erase their achievements. Instead, it reminds us that every economy changes. Industries evolve. Transportation shifts. Resources become harder to reach. Communities adapt, or they decline. Ghost towns are not simply monuments to collapse. They are evidence of constant change. Throughout this documentary, one question has quietly followed every story. Did these towns vanish because of fate, or because of human decisions? The historical record points to a complex answer. Some towns were devastated by disasters. Others declined as mining profits fell. Some were bypassed by new transportation routes. Economic choices, investment patterns, government policies, and changing technology all played important roles. No single explanation fits every ghost town. History is rarely that simple. Here is the truth many people never consider. Ghost towns did not disappear because America stopped growing. They disappeared because America kept growing. As industries changed, new cities emerged, railroads expanded, highways replaced older routes. Modern economies developed. Communities that once stood at the center of opportunity found themselves far from the new centers of commerce. Progress created prosperity in some places, and decline in others. The same force that built these towns ultimately left many behind. The story of America's ghost towns is not only about the past. Across the world today, communities continue facing economic transformation. Industries rise. Others decline. Technology changes how people work. Transportation reshapes trade. Some towns reinvent themselves. Others struggle. History reminds us that no community is guaranteed permanence. The future belongs to those able to adapt. At the beginning of this journey, we asked, how could entire towns simply disappear? Now we know. Most didn't disappear overnight. They faded gradually. One family moved away. Then another. A business closed. A school merged. A train stopped arriving. A mine produced less ore. Hope slowly became uncertainty. Until one day, only silence remained. The greatest mystery wasn't their disappearance. It was how ordinary the process often was. Walk through Bodie, stand in Bannack, explore Rhyolite, visit Centralia. Look beyond the abandoned buildings. You'll find something far more valuable than hidden gold. You'll find the dreams of ordinary people who believed they were building permanent communities. They succeeded, for a time. Their stories deserve to be remembered not because the towns became empty, but because they once were full of life. America's ghost towns are not merely abandoned places. They are chapters of a nation still being written. Perhaps somewhere across the American landscape, another town is quietly changing. A community that appears ordinary today may one day become tomorrow's ghost town. History has shown that prosperity can be surprisingly fragile. The only question is, which places will future generations walk through in silence, and what stories will they tell about us? If this documentary changed the way you see American history, let us know in the comments. Which ghost town fascinated you the most, and why? If you enjoyed this journey into forgotten history, subscribe for more documentaries exploring hidden civilizations, historical mysteries, lost empires, engineering disasters, and the untold stories that shaped our world. Because history is never truly gone. It is simply waiting to be rediscovered. Please don't forget to subscribe to my page, follow, like, and share for more hidden history, untold stories, and fascinating historical mysteries.